And we're back, and you're listening to KCAA 106.5 FM, Los Angeles, 102.3 FM, Riverside, and 1050 AM, Palm Springs. We leave no listener behind. So, welcome to Martino Movie Reviews. I'm Dave North Martino. So, Knock at the Cabin 2023 is an apocalyptic psychological horror film written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. It's based on the novel The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul G. Tremblay, and it stars Dave Bautista, who, of course, we know from Guardians of the Galaxy, Jonathan Groff, Ben Aldridge, and Abby Quinn. Now, while vacationing in a remote cabin, a group of armed strangers hold a family hostage, demanding they make a heartbreaking choice. So let me say right off the bat that Paul Tremblay's book, the title itself, Cabin at the End of the World, that's a superior title. Why did M. Night or the studio change it? I wasn't able to find out. I don't really know. I'm thinking, maybe they thought the title didn't sound like an M. Night movie. Maybe they, to their ears, Knock at the Cabin sounded like it was more of a horror story, that Cabin at the End of the World. Maybe they thought Cabin at the End of the World, that sounds, maybe they thought it gave some spoilers, even though it really doesn't. But for whatever reason, they had their reasons. I think I read something that M. Night, wanted to really make this his own, because it's very rare for him to make someone else's book, to take someone else's story, take their novel and turn it into a film, as he did here. And he wanted this to be M. Night, so we can understand that. And I've been a big fan of his, throughout his career. So, listen, in the first scene, Baptista's character, he approaches the little girl in the woods, and I'm reminded of Frankenstein's interaction with the little girl in Bride of Frankenstein. And especially with the usage, there's a flower that they're holding. And it totally gives me the Frankenstein vibes, which is neat. It's interesting. Dave Bautista is a big guy. It makes a lot of sense. There are also shots of characters looking directly into the camera. And that's reminiscent of Kubrick, especially in The Shining. And, I think these are really nice touches, and they kind of evoke a sense of dread, a foreshadowing, if you will, of what is to come. Since M. Night rewrote a good portion of Tremblay's novel, it's kind of, for the film, it's kind of the same thing Kubrick did to King. And so I think I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense that M. Night would use some of the same imagery from The Shining, or at least some of the same camera techniques. Now, the story itself, I found it fairly predictable. It doesn't have any of M. Night's, he's got these trademark twists and turns and things that are going on. We've come to expect that from an M. Night Shyamalan film. And this kind of goes like straight in one direction. As such, I think the movie feels more like a dark fantasy. And since this is no spoilers, I won't say why. But it feels more dark fantasy-ish than, let's say, a psychological horror film. There are really no scares here. There's some tension, and there's really a muted sense of danger. Now, even with all that said, the pacing is swift, and the flashbacks don't seem to slow down the story momentum. I think this is a testament to M. Night's understanding and his mastery of filmmaking. I was very impressed by it. The characters themselves are fairly one-dimensional, kind of cardboard, kind of stock characters. And we know almost nothing about them. We know very little. And it makes it hard to care about them, to care what happens to them. Usually, for me, this wouldn't work. But somehow, M. Night pulls this off. And I think it's partially the actors' performances. I'll tell you, the film had me entertained throughout the runtime. And I was surprised by that. I didn't think I was going to like this. Dave Bautista, he gets to show a little bit more range than he normally would. He's playing basically an English teacher. And, you might think, well, that's kind of a stretch. But, I really do think he pulled it off. And not once did I think, hey, why is this English teacher built like a pro wrestler? I think that speaks volumes to Baptista's acting ability and to M. Night's direction and direction of the actors in this film. Okay, Rupert Grint from Harry Potter fame, Mr. Weasley. He's kind of got a throwaway character here, a throwaway role. His Boston accent is okay, it's serviceable, but I'm not going to judge him too harshly here because even actors from Boston have a hard time making the accent sound authentic. I think that he did fine in this role. I've been a big fan of M. Night since The Sixth Sense, but I wasn't thrilled with the movie that came out like a year or two ago, Old. And, I wondered if M. Night's best days were behind him. I'm happy to report that even though this isn't a classic like The Sixth Sense and Signs, as I mentioned, Knock at the Cabin is entertaining. It might be somewhat forgettable, but I found it entertaining enough. Audiences gave this movie a C, right? Of, ABC type. They gave it a C. I have a hard time giving this film a C. I think despite its flaws, I think I would rate it a B because it kept me engaged throughout the film. So I think it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you have Peacock, if you have it available and you can watch it. Now, let me give you story doctoring. If M. Night gave more of a focus on ambiguity, it would have made the story creepier. And I think it would have made it more thoughtful. I also think that it would have been a good idea to expand and define all the characters' story arcs. And that would create a deeper backstory. That would have really been welcome. Knock at the Cabin is streaming on Peacock. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I'm Dave North Martino for Martino Movie Reviews. Full reviews are up at our website. And now back to Alan R. Warren on the House of Mystery on KCAA 106.5 FM, Los Angeles, 102.3 FM, Riverside, 1050 AM, Palm Springs. We leave no listener behind.